Watching the Tudors. I'm Heather.
And I'm Jonathan.
And this is the podcast where we watch the Tudors after almost 10 years and go into depth with the history and background of the show, explaining the stories behind the drama. You can learn more about the show and about us at watchingthetudors.com. This is episode 5, Arise, My Lord. And a quick reminder that if you like this show and you want to see more of it, please give us a rating on iTunes. It's the number one way you can help a show succeed, and it helps other people find the program. Let me talk real briefly about the reason why we're doing this. I started the Renaissance English History podcast in 2009, and that was about 2 years after the Tudors premiered. It's still running, and if you want to get into even more depth on all things related to 16th century England, you can check it out at englandcast.com. And I thought it would be fun to go through and start watching the Tudors from the beginning again after almost 10 years and see what stuck out at me after podcasting about this time period for such a long time. And it's my goal to bring the stories behind the Tudors to life in a more accessible way for the average viewer, and hopefully people will want to go even deeper into the Renaissance English History podcast as well.
And I'm Jonathan. Heather's my wife. I thought this would be a fun way to learn more about the history that she likes. And 5 shows in, I'm starting to discover why she's sort of interested in this stuff. Like, it's quite interesting. And
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my new favorite thing in the world, but I'm into it, more than just for the TV show. And I've been asking you little questions oh, and what about this person, and how are they related to whoever, and and I even kind of know dates, not really dates, but it's oh, that happened in 1550. That must have been this person's son instead of that person's, because that was too late. And yeah, so I'm getting into it a little. So yeah, good times.
Good times. So we're going to do a quick recap, and then you're going to ask me questions. Just a quick spoiler alert, as always, this whole series assumes that you have watched the episode or you're rewatching it with us. So if you haven't, please remember that we're going to be talking about everything that happened. So spoiler alert on that.
Yep.
And your caveat.
And my caveat, just there's bigger spoiler alert. So even if we don't give things away that happened in this episode, we might be giving things away that happen in later episodes.
Like Henry gets married 6 times.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just in case you wondered if he got a divorce, well, he got married 6 times. So I would say yes.
And it was the last 5 of them were in the last 14 years of his life.
That's wild.
So he got married 5 times in 14 years.
Yeah.
That's really busy. All right.
Yeah, he gets around a little bit.
Yeah, and he had gout and all kinds of diseases.
All right.
So this is episode 5, Arise, My Lord. And it originally aired on April 29th, 2007. And it opens with Henry Fitzroy, Henry's illegitimate son, being made a duke. And Catherine had to watch that, so that couldn't have been fun for her. Princess Margaret.
Who's really Mary.
Exactly. I'm just going to be so ready when she's done with this season.
It's so confusing.
She marries Charles Brandon in secret, and there's all kinds of hell to pay when Henry finds out about that. And Henry also gets pissed off when his divorce proceedings are stalled because the bishops have decided that only the Pope can decide if the marriage is legal or not. This is not good news for Cardinal Wolsey because he knows that his job is hanging on the annulment. And then Rome is sacked, and the Pope is the prisoner of the Emperor, who is coincidentally the nephew of Catherine of Aragon, and Henry puts that puzzle piece together and exits stage left really pissed off. And also Catherine finds out that Henry wants to get out of the marriage officially, and so she's very upset about that. And then later there's a scene where she gives Anne a glaring, deep stare down. And what else happens? Also, Thomas Tallis has a totally fabricated gay love affair. I just can't.
She can't take it.
I can't take the trauma. I feel like Seinfeld. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it didn't happen. And also, children are taken away. It's a sad episode for parents to watch because children are taken away. We see Henry Fitzroy die, which did happen, but when he was an adult. And also, Mary Tudor is taken away from Catherine to go live in the Welsh marshes.
You can't make all this stuff up, huh?
No. So let's jump right into your questions.
Okay, these are my questions from tonight's show. So, we start off, Thomas Boleyn is getting whatever, crowned or duped or whatever.
He's Lord Rochford.
Like that he really was Lord whatever.
Yep.
And it was just because
Henry wanted to
liked
sleep with his
daughter
wife or his daughter. Yeah.
All right.
Because he had slept with one of his daughters and he wanted to sleep with another one, so he was rewarding him for making
good daughters.
Good daughters, yeah.
Making them available. It's just, I mean, that was the whole plan. I mean, that was his plan, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Thomas Boleyn. And then Fitzroy, his son, Henry Fitzroy, like he was really given all that, like Lord of Nottingham and Duke of Chutney. And
he was, he was called, he was made the Duke of Richmond and Somerset. That was the main one, Duke of Richmond and Somerset. But there were all kinds of other smaller honors that he was given, and he was called His Right High and Noble Prince Henry, Duke of Richmond and Somerset.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
It was a double dukedom.
And so Henry and his son Henry met and knew each other and stuff.
Yeah, Henry knew him. Yeah.
And that was just all out in front of everyone. I mean, it wasn't a secret that was his bastard child.
No, at very first they didn't announce it right away. Cardinal Wolsey was his godfather, and at the very first it wasn't announced. But then Henry wanted to make it public that he had a son. So, yeah,
uncomfortable for the Queen.
Well, it was to be expected. To be honest, kings were always having illegitimate children, and it wouldn't have been that bad for her if she had a son of her own. Yeah,
because he would have just been some other bastard child. He would have just been another
bastard child, yeah.
But the problem was that she didn't have a male.
Anne of Cleves' grandfather. Anne of Cleves is his fourth wife, and she was German, but here's something funny talking about illegitimate children. Her grandfather was nicknamed the Baby Maker. Guess how many illegitimate children he had with a nickname like that? Come on, give me your wildest guess.
10?
More.
20?
More.
40?
More.
60?
63.
Oh my God.
And they were the ones he recognized.
He really was the Baby Maker.
I mean, it could have been like 100. Those are just the ones he knew about.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Gosh, we thought, modern day athletes are bad.
63.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, this was to be...
people didn't even live that long back then, huh?
He did this all before he got married, before his marriage.
He was like 35.
Before he was 31.
Wow. That's...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Good German stock, I guess.
Seriously, that is crazy.
But yeah, so it was to be expected that kings were going to have illegitimate dalliances.
I'm really blown away by that.
Okay. The Baby Maker.
Was Henry Fitzroy really first in line for the crown?
I don't think it was ever official. Henry flirted with making him his official heir.
I see. So at that time, he was probably in the leading, but it didn't really matter because...
Yeah. Okay. And it was really just because of his fear of leaving the crown to a woman. Yeah. Like we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then we heard news about the emperor leaving the marriage. So the emperor... who was the king of Spain, really called off the marriage to young Mary.
Yes.
And he really married the Princess of Portugal.
Yes.
And then
Isabella. They did it. He did it with Henry. Henry and he, in the show, it makes it look like it's really terrible, but Henry and he actually agreed to it.
Okay. They just said, we think this would be better.
He needed to have kids. Like he was like 17 years older than
I see.
And he needed to have kids. He couldn't wait.
I see.
Yeah.
And Anne seemed really good at flirting. Like
she was.
She sent him that gift, and she was playing hard to get.
Yeah.
And Lady Blount, really had to leave her son Fitzroy.
And that actually was a sign of how
serious.
How he was going to be raised like a royal child. Royal children weren't raised in general, especially the heir, weren't raised with their parents. They were raised in households of their own to be educated separately. In part, that was for their protection, so that if there were a lot of diseases and things that were always floating around. And, in general, mothers were okay with they just kind of expected it. It's funny because later on in time, Anne of Denmark, who was married to James James the First of England, when and the Scottish king, when she found out that she was raised in Denmark where that didn't happen, and she was raised by her parents and was very close with them. And when she found out she was going to have to send her son away, she threw a giant, massive fit. It was like a huge argument, and like she couldn't understand how terrible it was that they did that.
Yeah, they just took your child away.
Yeah, but it was kind of for their protection.
Mm-hmm.
And to be educated separately and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so then we're back to Margaret, who's with Charles Brandon.
Yes.
So, okay, so just to kind of recap for my own knowledge.
Give it to me.
In real history, real life or whatever, it was his sister Mary.
Yes.
Who married the really old king of France.
Louis XII.
And he really died somewhat soon after they married.
Yeah, it was like a couple months or something like that.
Yeah, and but she didn't. There's no evidence that she killed him or anything like in this show. And his son, then eventually, they said the show like, oh, his son is really excited that he passed away. Like,
yeah, it was
his son that took over the throne.
Francis the First, the one that we see as the King of France here. He was the son-in-law to Louis, and in part that was because in France they had Salic law. Women couldn't inherit the throne on their own. So his daughter Claude would have been his heir, but she was married to Francis, and so Francis became the king, and she became the queen.
Okay, so his son-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't I see son-in-law versus stepson. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Son-in-law.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, in France, in those countries that had Salic law, women couldn't actually rule on their own, but their claim was seen as much more, like you could easily get your claim through a woman. Whereas, interestingly, in England, it wasn't so much like you would get your claim through the man, and if it came down to it that people had equal claims, if there was a claim through a woman, it was seen as less important than a claim through a man. Yeah. And in France, women couldn't actually rule on their own officially by law,
but they were
their claims
in a stronger position.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue it, but yeah, it's just a fun fact.
All right, and Charles Brandon really did marry Mary, who is being played by Margaret in this one. But did he do it like that quick?
They did it in secret, and they did it in secret.
Oh, but was it that quick?
Yeah, no, it was really fast. Like he went to collect her.
She died, and like he raced off, and they got married.
Well, he went to collect her, and I don't know. I think they had a thing like before she went, and I don't know that they were having sex on the boat like they were here. But I would doubt that seriously. In case she got pregnant, that wouldn't have been good. But anyway, so he came and collected her, and they got married within a couple of weeks. It was
so it was pretty quick. So then we have the meeting with the Archbishop about getting a divorce from Catherine. Like that meeting really happened?
Yeah, that was the first step, was to get an ecclesiastical court.
And so those people were all England, like bishops or whatever.
Like the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Archbishop of York. England had two archbishoprics, Canterbury and York.
Like Archbishop areas or...
Yeah, exactly. And that's like places that are kind of the highest ranking places. Okay. And I don't know ecclesiastical courts and government and stuff like that, but there were two archbishoprics in England at this time.
It's interesting to me, like, learning more about this history and stuff, like how many kind of areas. I mean, I guess you could be... Like someone could be just a specialist on what did you say, ecclesiastical like history or whatever.
Well, people are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's like a thing. I mean, to me, it's in my head. It's like, oh well, I know about Renaissance English history, so like everything there is to know. But like I'm like a math major, and like when I went to school, it's like you didn't just major in math. I mean, you could, but like you had a specialty like algebra or like, number theory.
Well, it's funny because there's people who are so into the Tudors that they know all these people. Like you can ask them, what's that person and what's that person? And like, I don't know who all these
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are, but I know a lot about different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
That's like what and particularly like the changes in religion and music, and how the changes in religion affected the music. And there are people who just focus on that, like
Yeah, for
David
their
Skinner
whole-
that I interviewed for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like that was
So
his
he's
thing.
like a music historian or something.
Yeah, he's
like
a
that?
musicologist that just focuses pretty much exclusively on mid-16th century England. It's like,
And there's enough to have a whole career out of that.
oh God, yeah. I mean, there's not just there's whole, like, he's just one person in one school who happens to be a really famous one, but they have them all over. They meet for conferences.
That's crazy.
And they're all doing independent work where they're
Yeah.
analyzing
There's, like, stuff
scripts
to
or
look at.
analyzing
Yeah.
manuscripts and, you know,
And new things are uncovered.
yeah, and they digitize things and talk about preserving things, and yeah, no, it's all
Wild.
kinds of stuff.
All right.
And he actually, there's a big mystery. It's totally unrelated, but there's a guy called William Cornish who was the guy that we talked about the one time, who was the masks guy. He put together the mask.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's also a William Cornish that's mentioned in the Eton Choir book, which is one of the very earliest pieces of music, a musical manuscript that we have for the dates from 1505. And that music is very religious because it was included in this choir book that was for religious observance. And the big question is, was that written by William Cornish, the one that we know as the pageant guy, or his father? And we don't have there's no evidence of birth dates and death dates and stuff. And so it's looking at trying to match up the pieces that are in the Eton Choir book with the styles and how, and like, did that match this person? And like, that's like this whole, and there's this whole theory around where there are two William Cornishes or one William Cornish. And that's like what people spend their lives researching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then then we got word that the emperor, the king of Spain, released the king of France.
Yes.
And Henry was not happy about this.
No, he wasn't.
So the emperor really released the king of France?
Yeah, and that's what we talked about last time. Marguerite of Navarre, during the time when she was supposed to be having an affair with Henry, was actually going into Spain to negotiate for his release. Yeah.
And so why would the Spanish king do that? Like,
she paid a lot of money and agreed to be his ally, and
so just said we'll be better friends.
Paid a
if
ransom.
You let him go.
I mean, you wouldn't. It's the same. You know, there's stories of like English kings, like Richard the Lionheart is the most famous one, coming back from the Crusades, being captured and held ransom in Germany. And you know, you would do that.
But you wouldn't really like kill him or something.
No, you just hold him for ransom.
It was just a leveraging thing.
Yeah,
to
it
get
was just
some
like,
stuff
okay, I have this person. What are you going to give me now? Yeah.
All right.
Of course, Henry would have wanted to have him kept longer, so that or
he
at least
could
be consulted
go and slap
first.
him around or something. Yeah, just be part of the decision-making process.
Yeah, if you're his ally, and you know, you should be talked to about, I'm thinking of releasing him. What do you want while I'm in this good negotiating position?
Yeah, exactly. You can get something out of this.
Yeah.
And so was that a turning point, like in Spain-English relations?
Well, I think probably, yeah. Catherine of Aragon's stock fell a lot more after this as well. So
it's another tick against her, just in general.
Yeah. Although, you know, I don't know that Henry ever things got really bad for Henry with his relationship with both Spain and France after he said he was the head of the church and didn't owe any allegiance to the Pope, because then the Pope excommunicated him, and suddenly Spain and France both saw opportunities to wage holy war against him to earn kudos with the Pope. So things got quite bad for him after that point. It all went
to hell later.
Yeah.
All right. And he went over to Anne's house.
Yeah.
Like, did he really, like, go to people's houses like that? Like, as a king? I mean, not people's houses, but to Anne's house?
Yeah, I mean, she was at Hever Castle, which is in Kent, and it's a close ride. If he was in Greenwich or one of his houses.
I don't know if kings could just pop into people's houses or whatever.
Yeah, you're king. You can do some popping.
Wanted, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. It reminds me of, what's the show we like? Love Actually, where the prime minister is going door to door.
And singing Christmas carols then.
Are you a caroler?
What's her name? Is this where, what's her name? lives?
And then they say, yeah, Fatty.
Oh, Porky or something.
Porky. Yeah. All right. Sidetrack. So, and Anne really played that hard to get.
Oh, God, yeah.
So she was really like, oh, I would do anything for you, but we must be married first.
Yeah. And honestly, it wasn't that unusual of a game to play, but she kept it going for a long time. So Henry...
And with a king, I mean...
Well, no. For that, too. So Henry's grandfather, Edward IV, married a commoner, again, a strange thing, Elizabeth Woodville, and he married her because she played this same game. He wanted to have her as his mistress, and he was a man. Henry took after his Edward IV, his maternal grandfather, on so many levels, and really had his genes. And this was another way. Edward was a womanizer like crazy, loved, had affairs every which way. And he met Elizabeth Woodville, and she was actually a widow at the time, a young widow, and she was petitioning him in theory for some lands that she was owed, and he wanted to sleep with her. And she actually, supposedly, in the theory or the story is that she had a knife, and she put it to her own heart.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I would rather kill myself than give up. Even though she wasn't even a virgin because she was a widow, but I would rather kill myself than be treated like this by somebody. You know, what do you think I am, a whore, and blah, 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 blah. And he wound up marrying her.
She seems to have a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah. And that was another, Edward had tons of mistresses, lots of mistresses, but he also had lots and lots of babies with Elizabeth Woodville, and so I don't know about his illegitimate children, but he had a couple of famous mistresses. All right.
And then Wolsey came and talked to the Queen about how the princess was being sent to, Wales? He said, you know, she'll be provided for, and we'll give her this, and we'll move 300 from her court, or whatever, people with her. Like, that's how big their courts were? Like, 300 people and stuff? I mean, just for, like, a 8-year-old or whatever.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of chefs and stuff.
Well, there were her tutors. There were, you know, her playmates. And there were her guardians.
The hairdresser.
All of her ladies in waiting. And then they would have had other children there for her to socialize with. So children of lords and people who were the same age as her, to have like a group of people that she could play with. And they all had guardians, and then there were the people to cook for them and clean and take care.
No electricians, though, huh?
No electricians. Okay.
And your guess, like, I know we don't know, but, like, do you think it was Wolsey who decided to have the princess sent away, or was that was just a normal thing?
Yeah, actually, in a lot of ways, it was reaffirming her as Henry's heir.
It's important.
Because the Prince of Wales was always, you know, even now, the Prince of Wales is the heir, and the Duke of York is the spare. So throughout,
and so like right now, Prince William is
Prince Charles.
Prince Charles is the Prince of Wales.
Yeah, and that's why there's like the Prince of Wales's trust and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. So Prince Charles is the Prince of Wales, and his brother, who married Fergie, what's his name, Andrew, was the Duke of York. Is the Duke of York, I think. And so that was.
It's funny how his wife's more famous than he.
I know, right?
We all know Fergie, but who is she married to?
But yeah, so that goes way back. That was tradition, that the heir was made the Prince of Wales. So sending her to Wales was actually reaffirming her position as the Princess of Wales, and she was the heir.
The Spanish ambassador got it yelling at.
He did.
Did they really have like that tough position of just like being the proxy yelled at person? But they kill him?
No.
Okay, because that would be like not good.
Starting a war.
Bad political.
Yeah.
Okay.
You wouldn't kill.
So you didn't kill an ambassador.
Yeah, because then your ambassador would probably be killed.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They kill everyone else. They kill all their best friends, like their wives.
I think you would just expel the ambassador.
Okay.
But you wouldn't kill the ambassador.
And then just kill a peasant to make yourself feel better.
Bring me a peasant to kill.
I don't know. It sounds right to me.
We shouldn't ever do one on the White Queen or the series on the Wars of the Roses, Game of Thrones or something like that, because...
Did they really just kill everyone?
Like, the whole nobility died because...
And wasn't that, like, in France... What is it? When was it in France? Like,
No, it was in England.
But wasn't there a time in France, like, with the guillotines?
Oh, that was the French Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
That, like, they just killed... Everyone just... Like, they killed everyone.
Kinda.
Like both. Okay.
Robespierre and the Reign of Terror.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were just killing like 100 people a day or something.
More than
like,
that, I think. Yeah.
That's crazy. Blood.
And they killed Marie Antoinette.
Blood flew down the street.
Yeah.
All right. And then just sort of a random question. Someone was writing with a feather. I think it was Anne or something. Like that's how people wrote back then?
Yeah,
was
usually
with a feather?
goose feathers were pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you wrote, you were writing with a feather.
Yeah. I mean, there was lead. Actually, interestingly, lead pencils were discovered later on in Henry's reign.
Okay, so they were coming around like gunpowder.
Yeah, and it was because they actually first started using lead to mark sheep because they found deposits of it in, I think, northern England, and they used it to mark sheep. And then it got their hands all dirty, so they put wood around it to protect. So that's how a pencil
it would get all over. Oh, I see.
Yeah, so they would hollow out wood and put the lead through.
And then did everyone get lead poisoning and stuff?
Well, but then they put lead on their face for makeup.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it. And now we can't even use it. Okay.
Queen Elizabeth, one of the causes of her death, perhaps, is lead poisoning from all of the white makeup she put on her face.
Huh. Oops. Mm-hmm. So Thomas Tallis then
Yes.
is next. Would I know any of his music?
Yes. Well, because you've heard me play it. But we'll insert some music, his most famous Speminalium.
Okay. Pretty. Orpheus would be jealous.
Orpheus was the god of music, a Greek god.
Okay. I didn't know who Orpheus was. I thought he was like a popular musician.
It's a legendary Greek mythology person.
Right. Cool. H.R. He signed his letter to Anne.
Henricus Rex.
Henricus Rex. What, is that like king or something?
Yeah, Rex is king.
Okay.
You know that. The Spanish word is rey. Comes from Latin.
It doesn't mean I know that Rex means king. So is that like Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Yes. Is
the king of
the
tyrannosaurs.
Yep.
But he's the king of the dinosaurs. Ah. So Henry's excuse to get a divorce or to get an annulment or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like a good excuse.
Yes, Leviticus.
Like, I don't know if I was listening to that, like, oh, okay, so new things have come to light. Like,
right.
New things have come to light.
Yeah.
So was it just like partisanship, if you want to call it that?
Okay, well, yeah, we kind of talked about this in part, but also Henry and Catherine were given a dispensation to start with before they got married.
So it's kind of like, dude, you already went and bothered the king, the Pope about this.
Yeah.
He gave you special permission, and now you want to go back.
25 years later, you're saying that you don't agree with.
So it's not so much that they're like anti-Henry, or they're just like, dude,
like you
got to be kidding. Like,
yeah,
we're the ones that even allowed you to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
We're not going to go back.
Yeah.
All right. I get that. It's kind of like how much. Like next week, you're going to ask for us to take that back,
right?
Because all right,
and they were like all of those issues around whether or not she'd slept with Arthur, and like all of that was discussed when they gave the dispensation the first time.
Mm-hmm. And who was it? Thomas More, I think, was talking to him, and he said that she's very popular. Talking about the Queen, Queen Catherine.
Yes.
She was really popular, like with the people. Like they really liked her.
And then we talked about later, like they did really like her, and even that was partially evidenced when Mary came to the throne, and by that point England was already very Protestant, and there was the plot to put another cousin, Jane Grey, on the throne who was Protestant, and people didn't support that at all. They rallied to Mary and were very, because she was Catherine's daughter and she was the rightful queen and blah 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 blah. So yes, she was very popular. And
he said England will never forgive you if you divorce her. Like, did they kind of never forgive him, or?
It's hard because by that point he was already going crazy. Well, he was.
So who knows why everyone hated him?
No, I mean, I don't like when Anne was crowned, like there were reports that she was booed and things like that. I don't know that your average English person really cared. I don't.
Yeah, they weren't that.
know.
They weren't all that
And
worried.
they were just getting free wine that was flowing through the streets. So I mean, I think amongst nobles there were some that would stay on her side forever, but there were also some who saw the new stuff coming in and maybe had Protestant leanings and were like, okay, we'll go along with that. So I don't know that I think it'd be a bit poetic to say that England will never.
No, that makes sense. So you just said something. The wine like flowed through the streets or whatever. Yeah. Were you just saying that? Like, was there just free
they did
wine that went all over the place?
What's the word? I can't think of the word that powers fountains, not aqueducts, viaducts.
Okay.
Into fountains. They would fill that with wine for the people during celebrations like coronations.
That's crazy. Wow. So free drinks for everyone.
Keep everybody happy and in a party mood.
Yeah. And then what percentage of people were religious back then? Like, did everyone go to church? Did half
it was the law you had to go to church.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have a choice, really.
Right.
And then there was the bar scene with
Charles Brandon.
And just my question, is that like kind of a normal bar scene? Not that you've been to a bar in Renaissance England, but
I think public places like this where you could eat food and get drink and stuff were just starting to spring up in cities. And yes, I think that probably would have been
fair representation.
There were places where you could go and sit and get food and get something to drink.
And have women draped all over you. And
sure.
Okay, so that might have been just a little exaggeration on the sex fanatic directors of this show. So then Henry really was informed of his sister's and Charles Brandon's marriage.
Yes.
And I'm guessing he wasn't very happy.
No.
Like in reality.
Right.
And he like really took away all their stuff. He
banished them from court. They had to pay a huge fine.
Lost all their perks, I guess, if you will.
They were eventually welcomed back, though.
Okay, so he did. So later, Charles Brandon was saying, "Oh, he'll forgive us," and
they did.
He eventually did let them back, but scolded afterwards. He kind of seems like kind of a jerk, Henry.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like with his sister, the marriage he didn't have that many kids, right? So. I mean, he only had one. He needed her for another marrying. And
but he did promise her. Well, according to
but he was the king. And it was actually it became a law then that if you were in line to the throne, you did not marry without the king's express permission because
you just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
All right, well, it makes sense, I guess.
And also, then that's where there's claimants to the throne then that are going to come out of that. So you have to be careful about it.
So do you think, your opinion, like, do you think Henry really told Catherine that he was going to search for a divorce, or would he have just sent someone? Or?
No, see, that whole thing gets really weird because they show it like he said, we're going to do this and it's just up to you to decide where you want to live and blah, 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 blah. Things were already starting to happen, and Catherine knew that he was planning these things.
So she could already tell.
And he probably talked to her and said, I'm a little bit worried, blah, 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 blah. But then, what became really sad was that one day Henry went out riding with Anne Boleyn, and that was the last time she ever saw him. He just never said a proper goodbye to her or anything. It was like the court was all together, and he went out riding, and he never came back, and then she was told she had to move, and she moved, and she never saw him again after that point. And so, I don't know how it would have gone where they would have been talking about it at this point, how much, and then having Anne be right there. I think by the point that she knew what was going on, I think Anne would have been separated out a little bit more and wouldn't have been...
You're just all in the mix.
Yeah.
Huh. And it really seemed like the way they showed it, the Queen really loved Henry, huh?
She did. He was her prince. He was her knight, her prince,
It's sad. Well, it's sad that they broke up then.
Yeah.
And
she there's a story that when she died, her last letter to him, or the last letter she ever wrote, she said, above all else, my eyes desire to see you. And that was like on her deathbed when she wrote that to him.
She never saw him again.
And she continued, I don't know if they'll show it in the show, I forget, but she continued darning his shirts even like way after they were separated and stuff. Like he still sent his shirts to her to be darned because he liked the way she did it. And Anne Boleyn found out and threw like a
I can imagine she'd be pissed off.
Yeah.
Oh no! So that like sew him up or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. And so little things like that she kept doing for him.
And she couldn't remarry. I mean, once they were done, like she was just done for that. No more kids and stuff.
Yeah. Well, she was already going through menopause by this point, so
okay. And so the meeting with the Archbishop, they went back to that, and they were saying like, well, no, we don't think you have any ground, Wolsey, to even do this, and. Like, is that how it ended up? Like, it was just sort of almost like a mistrial, if you will.
Yeah,
like,
I think basically nobody there wanted to make the decision.
Make the call. Like, it wasn't like, we're not going to go against the Pope's dispensation
that they'd received before.
Yeah,
and they're like,
so
if you already have a
whatever,
papal
dude, if you want to, you need to talk to the Pope if you want to do this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Queen really lost... Mary really moved away, and like gosh, that's sad.
It's what happened.
I know.
But it is.
I can't imagine them taking our little baby.
I think if you were, well, the thing is, it'd be different because if you were royalty, you would have been raised that way. Yeah. So women, queens.
I'm glad I'm not royalty.
Yeah, queens at this time, motherhood was very different. Like queens didn't. It was really unusual. Anne of Denmark. Again, her story coming from Denmark, it was really crazy that her mother breastfed her. Mm-hmm. You didn't breastfeed your children. You gave them to wet nurses because you wanted to get pregnant again right away.
Yeah.
And it's like you'd have your baby and pretty much right away it'd be taken out of your arms and given to a wet nurse. And
we really live in like a really good time, like where we can choose to marry who we want to marry and like raise our own children and like they don't have to be married off and and like we're not starving and Huh.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad we're alive now.
Yeah.
This episode, there was lots of Henry sitting on his throne.
Yes.
Like, is that a normal... Would kings really just sit around on their throne like they do in, like, movies and stuff? And
well, when he was receiving people, that's where he would...
when he's not riding his horse or something. But, like, I don't know. It's sort of like his Oval Office. Or just hang out in the throne room.
Yeah.
All right. Was there really lots of drama? Like, so... In the show, it's Margaret who, got married to the king and he died, and then she got married to Brandon. And in real life, it was Mary. Like, was there really drama between King and his sister? Like, because of all this, like, he really expelled her. Or do you think it was just for show, or do you think he ever cared?
It's hard to tell. Henry was raised with his sisters because that was the whole thing that made him different. That he wasn't ever supposed to be the heir, so. He was raised with his sisters. What? So no wonder he was so emotional. Right. And he was meant to go into the church, and his mother actually was with him and likely taught him. And, there's evidence that she taught him handwriting and, herself. And so he's very close to his sisters. And I think he tried to do everything he could to help them as he could. But Charles, Brandon, and Mary then lived a very quiet life away from court, and I think they just didn't want to be there wrapped up in things. Okay.
And there was... So then the Thomas Tallis scene.
Oh, God. Just don't.
Well, just for clarity, like, we don't know anything about a gay love affair with Thomas Tallis.
And also, Thomas Tallis wasn't really popular at this point. Like, this is all in the 1520s anyway. I mean, he didn't have a gay lover, and he wouldn't have really been showing up at this point anyway. He didn't show up at the English court until like the 1540s. So this whole scene is
kind
just
of strange. It's just wrong in so many levels we can't even begin to.
Yes.
All right. And then Anne gave Henry a gift. Like, would she really give him gifts? And so and to go along with her poems and stuff. Yep. Huh. Gosh, they really flirted around. And then Francis, the king of France.
Yep.
He like wanted to be friends now with Henry.
They were always going back and forth.
So it was always like, hey, let's make a treaty. Let's break a treaty. You can't marry my daughter. Wait, maybe you can. Let's be friends again. Like, it's just all right. And then so France and England then united against Spain or
the emperor
against the emperor. It wasn't so much Spain as the emperor.
Yeah.
All right. And were things just always? I mean, I guess was there any like stability? It just seems like everything's falling apart from every different angle. Like,
okay, but you got to remember,
like politically. I mean,
this, and this is like for high up at court. I mean, this, like, I'm sure President Obama deals with stuff like
falling
this
apart all the time. Okay,
and we don't know about it. And we don't care
unless we were watching what's that show about?
House of Cards.
I guess.
That I like?
No, what's the other one with the White House that was made a few years ago?
The West Wing.
West Wing.
Yeah.
So if we watch that, we'd think everything was falling apart, just like everything's falling apart here.
Yeah. So
that's why politicians go gray. And
yes. Yeah.
Henry seems like a bit of a hothead to me.
You think?
It's like just starting to dawn on me. Uh-huh. So he's kind of, I don't know, he kind of just seems all over the place. Like, I'm mad at you. Wait till
he goes crazy in 1536.
And then he's just mad at everyone.
Yep.
And it seems, and like on that sort of line of thinking, like it doesn't seem like he has allegiance to anyone. Like he's like, yeah, I hope for you, Wolsey, that you can get, like, that the Pope thinks that. And, you know, even he's lying to Thomas More, who he's like, seems like his best buddy, and he's kicking Charles Brandon out of like court, even though he just made him like whatever knight or duke or whatever he was. And
one really interesting weird thing that Henry had in his personality was often he would raise people up, and this is we're talking a little bit later, but often he would raise people up right before he was going to kill them. So he actually, there's a story that he made for the longest time, the imperial ambassador never actually had to talk to Anne Boleyn. He avoided ever seeing her because he called her like the great whore and all this, and he never actually had to see her. And Henry orchestrated him having to meet up with her after church one day, and he had to bow to her, right? And it was like this big deal that finally the imperial ambassador has to bow to Anne Boleyn. And that was like 2 weeks before she was arrested and killed. And like he did the same thing with Thomas Cromwell. He made him the Earl of Essex, like, I don't know, like a month before he beheaded him or something. And like Henry has this weird thing where he like raises people up right before he's going to kill them. And I think part of that, people have explained that away, that he does it in part to show that they really must be guilty of whatever crime they were accused of.
Why would
he do this to this great favorite that he had if they hadn't been guilty of all of these things? But it's a weird thing that he has. But you know, like kings at that time, they were beholden only to God.
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like he doesn't like have anyone's back. Like it's like he's not loyal to this person or that person. It's just sort of like, whatever, I'm the king. And then he's saying he's going to marry Mary again, like Mary. His daughter to France. And so he's just always, she's married to this person, next week that person, next week that person. And
poor Mary never actually, she's such a sad story. She never got married until she was finally 37 and could be queen and could arrange it herself.
Geez, so after all that, she never like ended up marrying any of these guys.
Nope.
It's crazy.
She married the emperor's son, Philip.
Huh.
Yep.
Charles V's son.
Mm-hmm. Philip of Spain.
So they were like second cousins or something.
Yeah.
Because her mom was the aunt.
Well, she would have been first cousins with Charles V. And then it was...
So that's like marrying your cousin's
Yeah.
child. Weird. It's all just weird.
It's less weird than marrying your cousin.
Well, just one step. I don't know. All right. And then Anne and Henry were like really that out there. I mean, it was totally like the known secret around everywhere.
Now, again, this whole thing mixes times.
Yeah. But by the
end of it,
when it was, they were really just...
She had a little shadow court and all of it.
Gosh. And was she was really taking care of the queen, like Anne was?
See, this is where I think it mixes. Yeah, she was a lady in waiting to the queen.
So she would have
waited on her.
Gosh, that's weird.
I think by the time they got really serious, Henry
they would have separated them.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, or second to the end, the guy comes in, and so Spain and the German states, because Charles V, who's the King of Spain and the Holy Roman Emperor, is also a Habsburg.
Yep.
And they were from like the Germanic area. Mm-hmm. And so they all got together and sacked Rome.
Yes.
And like they killed all sorts of...
It was horrible.
But like, it's just like doing my head in, because like I know I don't understand the intricacies of like, you know, European politics back then, but he was like the emperor of kind of Rome.
Well, he was the Holy Roman Emperor, which was Germany and stuff. It wasn't related to the Pope.
Well, no, not related to the Pope, but just Roman. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like in title.
But that's more out of like Rome, the empire, rather than Rome, the
city.
Pope. Yeah.
It's all right. That's like a whole episode in itself. It confuses me. I don't know. I just hear Holy Roman, and I think Rome. Like, so how's he going to sack Rome if like that's the kind of thing he's leading? Was it almost like a coup or something?
No. I mean, the Holy Roman Emperor wasn't at all headed up by Rome, at all.
Okay.
Charlemagne was the first Holy Roman Emperor, and it was like the German states, and it was the whole idea of like trying to...
So why are they called Roman?
Because it was out of there was the schism between the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire in like 476 when Rome was sacked the first time, and...
You know who you're talking to, right?
Okay.
Like, no, I don't know any of that. I mean, I know there was an Eastern...
Yeah.
I don't know if we have time to get into
No,
all
we
of
don't.
it,
Basically, they had this idea by the time of Charlemagne, which is, I don't know, like 300-400 years later, that they were going to have a similar idea of an empire in Europe. And I'm not an expert on this, so I can't, like, people should go research that if they're really that interested. But, so it was a secular group of people and it was the title that Charlemagne was given of, that he was leading the Holy Roman Empire, and Charlemagne was German, and it was like in the German states, and they were trying to recreate the might of the Roman Empire.
I see.
So it had absolutely nothing to do with
with Rome.
Yeah.
All right. Totally, just have no idea. Maybe if someone's an expert on this, they can write in.
And they can tell us about it.
We can interview them on the intricacies of this.
Of the Holy Roman Empire.
All right. And then finally, how it does actually end is with Fitzroy dying.
Yes.
And he really, he didn't die that young, like they made it seem, but he did die.
He died when he was 18, 19, something in there.
And he died. Did he really die of sweating fevers?
Sweating sickness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is, I was curious as to what that is.
It's a very mysterious and highly contagious disease that nobody really knows. And they would say it came on you really, really fast. So people were always so afraid of it because it would come on you. And the whole story was they'd say you were well at breakfast and dead by dinner, or dancing at breakfast and dead by dinner, or something like that. And it was just death. It says here death often occurred within hours.
Yeah, we looked it up, and it's we still don't know.
Yeah, nobody.
It's just, that's weird to me because I'm sort of interested in medicine, and it's wild to me that they don't know what happened, or what that was about. I mean, we know now what the plague was, and we know about, I mean, I know it's not that old, but the Spanish flu and everything, but just, it's what was that? We don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a note on Henry Fitzroy, actually,
yes.
Just to be clear. I don't know that he died of sweating sickness. He was ill throughout a couple of the last months of his life. And so it could have been tuberculosis or something as well.
So it's not definitive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are my questions. I'm getting more interested in this whole... maybe I'm just being drawn into the drama. I'm not sure, but
well, we have finished watching Bachelor in Paradise now, so you need something to replace that.
Oh Lord! All right.
My
well,
husband
thanks.
likes Bachelor in Paradise. Yeah. So, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for going through that with me.
If you have any questions about the show or whatever, you can go to watchingthetudors.com. And
I was thanking you, but thank you as well to everyone listening. Yeah, thanks for listening with us.
And we'll be back again next week with episode 6.
Yay, I'm excited. We'll see what happens.
Remember to leave us a rating on iTunes if you like the show.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.